To forget how to dig the earth and to tend the soil is to forget ourselves. Mahatma Gandhi. Hi, I'm Tamara Michelle, and we are Real Conversations podcast, created in Dauphin, Manitoba, Canada. Today we hail from Bede, Manitoba, where I meet up with Farmer Voth. We take a look at his homestead and learn more about his passion for farming. Thank you to our show sponsors: Bankert Marketing, Dr. Brenna and Three Graces Medispa, Real Security Solutions, Right Side Equipment of Dauphin, Oil Depot of Dauphin, Roofs, Furniture and Appliances of Dauphin, Tri Family Health, Beauty and Fine Gifts of the Paw, Ramsey's Health and Fitness of Dauphin, Cloud9 Canna Supplies of Dauphin, and Hearts to Nature Fine Art Nature Photography.
So what I'm actually looking for, I've been out here and I cut this alfalfa, but there's conditioner rolls in the mower conditioner, and the point of that is to actually physically crimp the plant in several areas along the stalk the whole way down. What that allows us to do is it allows to kind of break it up and to bend it, and what that does is that it allows it to kind of dry out. Because the plant will continue respirating, it'll kind of continue moving fluids throughout itself. Right after you cut it off, kind of similar to like flowers, right? You cut them off and you throw them in a vase, and
right.
A vase, and then they'll still keep, they
still absorb moisture, yeah.
And so, but what we want to do here is we want to speed that whole process up as in terms of them breaking down and drying out and all that. So we actually condition it. So we actually check to see how far our conditioner marks are away from each other, kind of determine, well, are we have enough? Do we got to put more on? Do we need to put more tension? All that stuff. Then when we come out here to actually bale it, it's a little bit tough here because it's kind of sprinkling at the moment. When we want to check to see if that alfalfa or that plant, you can do it with grass or almost anything. If it's cured, you're just looking for, when you go and bend it, you're kind of looking for a bit of like a crunch. You're looking for a bit.
A little snap? Okay.
And if it is, usually you're pretty close to being about right. Whereas it's dried out, it's ready, and it'll store in a bale.
Okay. That sounds great. And this is an alfalfa crop, is that correct?
Yeah, this is alfalfa with some grass in it.
Okay.
Because we're just outside of what's kind of almost known as the Poverty Plains, it's very sandy soil. Right here, I think we're in Rutledge Loamy Sands. So this is a Class G soil, which is pretty high for this area. Yeah, and basically you can just see it almost just looks like beach sand in a lot of cases. Yeah, very coarse. So not the best. It's not.
So what does that mean? Because you said with the molehills that like they're very hard with all the moisture and.
Yeah. So what we're having a lot of problems with is that because if you look just how heavy the canopy is, the crop's very, very thick. So what's happening is there's not a lot of predators that are able to get them. So there's foxes. There's a coyote den just in the dugout bank over there. They're kind of the control for moles and for gophers and stuff like that. They're the natural predators for them. What's happening right now is that because we've got this great crop out here, we've got this heavy canopy, in most cases they're not open like this. In most cases you can't see them. And so the predators aren't able to get at them, and they're just going crazy. And so
they're populating.
Yeah, they're populating like crazy. And so it's very weird for these to be as hard as they are. Like normally it's really not a big deal that you'd be cutting with the haybine, you just push right through it and it would go through, or it would. So
what does that do to your machinery then?
It wears everything out a lot faster than it should. But What's happening this year is because they're hard, but yet then they're slimy too because we've had so much rain. They're actually they're plugging up right in front of the knife. And actually, so what happens is we just end up just kind of pushing it along, and the plants will literally just rip right out of the ground.
Ah, okay. I see.
So it's causing a lot of.
So it's affecting the blade because it gets kind of mucked up with all the mud at the front. It's like
exactly.
It's almost like the front of your machine becomes almost like a big backhoe or a big loader.
Just like a big dozer. Yep.
Wow.
That's what's continuing to happen. So it's a very challenging year because what's happening, it's standing up here. We get a lot of places. We've had a lot of heavy rain and a lot of wind, and so the crop is laying. Which was the crop, a lot of this was 3 feet high at one point. Now it's laying down, it's 6-8 inches high, but yet it's well within this. So we actually have to push the reel on that haybine. We have to push it down and out. We have to pick up lower than the level we're cutting, but yet we still have to cut high enough that we don't get too messed up with all of these molehills. And
some of these molehills are how high? Like a foot?
I've seen some. Or it might have been a couple of gopher mounds too, a couple of them, but they're getting to be they're pushing 8 inches high.
Oh, okay, so not far off from a foot. Makes a big difference.
So, and then when we look at like how high we're cutting just in that chunk over there, just right behind us, which is very low because there's really nothing out there. it's quite different. So yeah, it's definitely a challenging year for the machinery, just the volume, the moisture, everything. It's a very different. I haven't seen conditions quite like this before. Especially not in this combination. How we're doing some of this, we've got this creek running through here, and there's all these different ponds that kind of go as it weaves and it works its way through here. The thing about having this in a perennial forage is that we've got all this economic, environmental, not diversity. You know, there's birds, there's frogs, there's ducks, there's all sorts of everything. There's some bees flew by here just a moment ago. There's all this other stuff going on. We wouldn't normally see that kind of thing if all we were doing was just seeding right up to the edge of it, if we were spraying it constantly and all that stuff, because that ecosystem just cannot stand up in the same way to those types of pressures from herbicides, insecticides, and that kind of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with modern farming practices in that regard, but just it's hard to have and to integrate these wetlands and this kind of thing into those types of situations. Whereas just because of the lay of the land here and being in perennial forage, I really can actually help and do an awful lot with that.
And do you find, like, having this little section of land, you might lose a little bit of, say, finances because you've farmed a little farther back, but you find it rewarding? Absolutely. It can be a challenge. Years like this year, there's a nice little spot over there where I cross normally with it, so I can just go back and forth. Whereas right now, I either have to go around the North Road or around back down to the highway and come across. Just to simply get over there can just be a headache. But in terms of financial loss, otherwise, not really, because a lot of years this is all dry, so I will get down in there and I can hay some of that. I can clean it up late in the season without actually hurting anything, and then we get these wetter years again, and it's back full. And you were saying that you don't normally have reeds this high. This is just a very abnormally wet year. Yeah, absolutely it is. So everything has just gone crazy. We normally only get like 6 inches of rain here. We're over 10 already. Okay. And we're still far from the season being over. We're still far from there. It's still kind of trying to rain today, even though there's no heat, there's nothing going on. Yeah. It's still trying too. So. Huh? Yeah, no, this is quite a phenomenal year, to say the least. Here we go. Welcome to Real Conversations. I'm Tamara Michelle, and I'm here with, what's funny? Is it Marty Voth? It's Marty Voth. Okay, yep. It's not Martin, it's not anything else. Okay, I'm glad I'm asking because I've only got you from your Facebook name, so. Oh, Farmer Voth, yeah. Farmer Voth, yes. Yeah. So I kind of put 2 and 2 together. So I was invited out here today, or I might have invited myself, I'm not even sure on that one. No, it's good. That's good. We connected on Facebook, and I'm out here close to Melita. Do you want to explain exactly where we are? We are 12 miles northeast of Melita, Manitoba. Okay. Basically right on the south edge of the Oak Lake Aquifer, just east of what is commonly known as the Poverty Plains. Okay, and you said the Poverty Plainsmen are from out here. Yeah, they, Mark Smith and those guys, they grew up Tilston, Manitoba, which is roughly about 16 or 17 miles straight west of here. Okay. Actually on this very highway right here, 345. So. Okay. Yeah. And we are currently in a 1981? Yeah, 1981 John Deere 4240. Pulling a 568 John Deere ground baler out here in the field, just wrapping up some hay right now. So this is something new for us, something I've never done. Definitely not been in a piece of equipment like this, I have to say. And oh my gosh, your dog is chasing deer. Yes. Sorry, that is wild. Yeah, she'll catch them too. Oh my goodness. Sorry, there's lots of excitement happening. Lots going on. Oh, wow. Never a dull day out here. That's so fun. Marty, tell me a little bit about yourself. So we've been talking a little bit today and discussing all sorts of things. I wanted to know a little bit about sort of your background. Can you tell me, I guess, a little bit about your portfolio? What is it that you've done? I know you're 37, you said. Yep. Talk to me a little bit about some of the things you've done. I've been pretty blessed. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of really cool and different things in my life. Now, I'm originally from Melita, Manitoba, kind of born and raised. A bit of a transplant to Dauphin, finished some high school up there. Just
spent some years up there as well. But yeah, I'm an ag guy. I'm a farmer. I grew up that. I basically grew up in riding in a tractor, pretty much the same as this, sitting right about there. Being 1 year old back in 1985, which was the best year harvesting ever, if you ask your older dad or grandpa.
Okay.
Putting around the field, pulling an old combine, taking off. I forget how good the wheat was out here, but it was really good. So I kind of never really stood a chance. I've always been a farmer. It's kind of, agriculture's always been my thing. Yeah, went to U of M, University of Manitoba, took agriculture there. I've been down south. I've done the harvest run with MacDon from Dallas, Texas to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and every little town in between.
Can I ask, so MacDon, for those that don't know, all the farmers will know who that is.
Yeah.
That's basically a parts...
farm equipment manufacturer based out of Winnipeg. They make, they're most known for their flex headers and their swathers. They also make some hay cutters and some different things like that as well. So, yeah, the custom wheat harvest run, they go down, they take a semi-trailer down and load up a bunch of trucks, and yeah, basically they're driving around supporting their customers as they take the wheat harvest off.
Oh, that's really cool.
So yeah, it starts usually early May down kind of northern Texas. And yeah, we followed it all the way up through to Montana, and then yeah, we got a chance to do some stuff up here in Canada as well. So it's pretty cool. It was kind of a unique opportunity. Done a whole bunch of other different things. Did some research, worked for some various different companies here and there. Spent about 6 years with Myers Norris Penny, the accounting firm, doing farm management consulting. Part of that group there, and then I also did some insurance and some compilations and stuff like that. So that was really cool. Fantastic company, and I learned an awful lot there. I'm a spreadsheet junkie to this day because of it. That's me in the winter. I've got mad spreadsheets doing all sorts of different things. Yeah, since then I've done a bunch of different things. I've been an ag lender. I spent 20 years working with TD Bank at Brandon, being an ag commercial lender. Kind of fast forward more recently, went through and became an ag mechanic. Yeah, so I was working actually up in Dauphin on the right side. Shout out to those guys.
Yeah.
And yeah, just moved back home here recently, back to the Mid area where I farm and where I have been farming for a number of years. I had the opportunity to take on some more land, and yeah, kind of just jumped on it.
That's awesome. So this land here, so right now we are baling grassland, right?
Yeah, we're baling, basically some grass here right now, quite slowly. And basically I used to have cows. I grew up in the Manitoba Junior Charolais Association and Manitoba Forage Beef programs. Used to show a lot of cattle and do all that. And I used to have 50 head of cattle going back to fall of 14. I sold them. After that, I was kind of looking for something to do. It's like, well, what am I going to do? I have this half section of land and I could rent it out. But it turns out a friend of mine had bought some land from a guy, and he had his equipment for sale. And I ended up buying this equipment, and I've been haying this land ever since.
Okay.
It started out, it was all just grass. I've kind of slowly incorporated alfalfa into now about 200 to 300 acres here.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been making hay basically on my weekends, my evenings, and whatever holidays I can scoot from work pretty much. And this is pretty much where you'll find me, is just sitting in this tractor cab going up and down all day long.
Okay. I've talked to lots of farmers about farm work, specifically time in the tractor. Do you find it's really great thinking time for you?
Oh, absolutely. If I want to clear my brain, this is when I solve my problems. I'm going up and down, everything's going fine. We're not in too adverse conditions here right at the moment. And so yeah, that's when I get my time to just sit down and reflect. I've gotten away from radio and all that other stuff. I just like the quiet, just sit here, listen to the machine, and just think about everything that's going on. And there's no shortage of things to think about, obviously, in the last while. So.
Yeah. And then we had a really cool conversation about, it's not this field, but it's actually the farm field adjacent to us with the alfalfa. And I want you to tell the story about what you had to decided to do to seed it?
Okay, so basically after I sold my cows, I knew I wanted to start putting, and I decided that I would maybe start haying, and I had the opportunity to buy this equipment. I decided I needed, in this type of land, now we're up here, this is Rutledge loamy sand, it's class G land, it's quite coarse, and it's not exactly ideal for field crops, although it does grow field crops, because pretty much we're surrounded by that now. But at that time, this was all pasture land. And so what I decided I was going to do was I was going to seed some alfalfa in here, because we're actually quite into the Oak Lake aquifer here. So you go down, there's pockets of water. It's like an ice cube tray effect the way this aquifer works. And so basically I was thinking about it, and I wanted to put alfalfa in. I wanted something taproot that could go down and utilize that moisture and utilize what we actually have here, because our average rainfall here is only give or take 6 inches a year. It's not very high. This isn't super high for fertility soil. And back when I bought this land in 09, it was like, some of this was 0.9, some of it was 1.1% soil organic matter. So it was really just chewed out nasty pasture. And I wanted to do something that not only I could make some money at, because let's face it, we all got to make money, but that I could also use to improve the soil health, and best utilize that. So I wanted to seed alfalfa. But at that time, I didn't have a seed drill. I didn't have a whole lot of stuff. I had a couple of tractors and some haying equipment. So basically what I did, after talking to some of my friends that are into regenerative agriculture and some of the other just oddball things like that, I decided that I'd come out, I'd rent the Valmar spreader, the local ag input center, and what I did, I went out and I put my fertilizer, my seed on, and I broadcast it over all of it.
So this was top,
just right on the surface, and I think it was the beginning of May. And then I came out, and I went and I got a bunch of twine wire posts and some electric fencer and a bunch of stuff, and I cross-fenced that chunk. It was only 50 acres, but I cross-fenced it in 3 different paddocks. The reason I went and I did all that was because that allowed me to I got some cattle. A friend of mine brought me a group of heifers, and I got them to come in, shoo off the grass, and what they did is while they were doing that, they also trampled that seed, that fertilizer down to the ground, which is a very unconventional way of doing it, but it's not something that is new. That has been done before. There are old timers that have done that before and talked about that. Okay. But the key is that this was the spring of 2015. It was wet here. Where we started off our interview over here would have been under the water. That's how wet it was here. Okay. And so, because it was so wet in these conditions, that stand of alfalfa caught, and it's still, to this day, of all the stuff I have, is still the best stem. It's the oldest, and it's still the best.
And it just reseeds itself every year, or I guess it's taprooted, you said?
Yeah, alfalfa's just about full. Alfalfa's a perennial.
Okay.
And so what happens is it comes back. It grows from the root every single year. So the basic of it is that you just have to manage it. You have to manage perennial crops in order to make sure that they have the root reserves and everything going back in the winter. Okay.
And you do fertilize a little bit once in a while?
Yeah, I do. It does get fertilizer every year. I soil test it, it gets fertilizer. All that stuff does happen. Okay. I keep the fertility program up. But the interesting point about all that is now it's 2022, I believe, and I have gone from that chewed out pasture that had around 1% soil organic matter. I'm now up to 2.5% across these fields.
Wow.
So I've seen a huge improvement. So what that means is that at the end of the day, not only am I'm growing a crop, but I'm also improving the soil. I'm putting nutrients back in, but I'm also all those micronutrients and all that stuff that's been tied up in that soil for years is starting to become more available now. So what we're seeing is that the yields have been increasing as long as we've been getting rain. Yeah. But even just the grass variety and everything that's coming has changed, because everything I have out here that I've seen alfalfa in, I have put no grass. It's just like straight alfalfa. But the grass comes in naturally. But what I'm finding is that the grasses are coming in, and they're the those native varieties that have been suppressed and that were overgrazed by cattle even under a rotational grazing system that this was under, they're coming back, and they're thriving, and it's really cool to see, because the whole ecosystem out here has changed dramatically since there was last even an animal out here.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. And so these bales that we're producing then, and whether it's the hay field here, which is just the grasses, or your mix of alfalfa and grass, who do you sell that to? Where does that go?
So I sell it locally to the cattle producers primarily. Some of the grass hay fields that I have that are pure grass and are very clean, even a few guys just buy it for their horses even locally. So most of it goes fairly locally. I'm pretty lucky. I've got some pretty great customers. A couple of them, they're just within a few miles here. And literally, when they're not busy in the summer, they'll come hop in a tractor cab, or they'll come break ahead of me. Or there's been times I've had to go back to work, and they'll stay and they'll cut hay for me or something like that. You know, if something goes wrong, they just shut it off and walk away. That's fine. Sorry, we're just gonna.
So is this the first bale?
Yeah, since we've done this.
But you said this is a lot slower than average.
Oh yeah, in that amount of time, I would have probably pumped out of 8 or 9.
And that's so it's not as bumpy. We have to figure out a different. I got to get my gimbal.
Yeah. Also, just so it's not so loud. Yeah. I'm just running the tractor pretty slow here. It's gonna bug me all day. Sorry, where were we?
No, I was just asking about the farmers. And
so anyway, they'll do that, and we'll figure it out at the end. Oftentimes, I just take it off their bill, or figure out a rate, or whatever. Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. I've got some people I do work with, but I do sell some externally as well.
Okay, and I guess that's probably the last point I think we'll get to today, because you have a passion for. I almost want to call it like old-timey farming. Like, I don't know if there's you call it, you've had a few different names for it, but I think it's kind of going back to the old-fashioned values, sort of the neighborhood. You have like a farming neighborhood, and so you're working locally, you're working on the land, doing what you love. You like you said, your equipment's a bit older, but I mean, you're quite capable of fixing all of your own stuff, given that you are, an agricultural mechanic. You really have some really cool advantages, and then that give take that you have with your neighbors, which is really basically what our ancestors and the pioneers, of the prairies always did. Is you always helped one another when there was a need, or you create those relationships. Yep. So I guess that's my last question. How important do you feel those relationships that you build in farming, whether it's with agricultural dealerships or implement dealerships, or your business with Macron, or your local farmers here that buy your bales and support your business, and you have opportunities to give back as you have a skill set that is really highly valued here. Yep. How important is that?
Well, that's the key, because for somebody like me in my position, being younger-ish, I guess, but yet not just getting the keys and daddy's keys and daddy's equipment, having to do this from literally scratch almost. Yeah. There's no other way to do it. I wouldn't be able to do it without being able to work with other people, without sometimes the help and the support of others, and then turning around and doing that, because you are your name, you are your reputation, and if you can't be good for that's that gets everywhere very quickly. Yes. And so that's what I find the big thing is. It comes down to it's a song lyric, and so you'll laugh. It's cliche, but it comes down to this, and this one's always stuck with me. And it goes, it's about you and who you are. It's all a state of mind. And you may recognize the song, but the basis of it is that's really all we have. We can go out there and we can tell everybody this and that, but if you have to build something, if you got to start from something, you can't do it without other people.
No, I agree.
There's no business, there's no industry that you can do that.
No.
Or very few, if there are.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the key of it. If you want to do that, you want to get somewhere, you're going to always be reliant on others.
Yeah.
And so it's basically a necessity.
Yeah.
And I think that's where for a lot of our ancestors and stuff, it was. But now in the ag industry, I'm not sure how much of it goes on. I think in places I know, a lot of it does. In others, not so much. So,
Yeah. Oh.
but if it's going to happen anywhere, it'll be in the ag industry. I can promise you that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Marty, thank you so much for having me here today. Lots of information to kind of absorb and, well, and some really,
sort and file. Yeah.
No, but you know, and interesting too, because it's very cool to talk to a younger generation farmer, especially someone like you said that is working towards sort of the dream of what you want to envision, that you love farming and this is what you want to do, and all the skills that you have collected, all the schooling, all the education, all the things that you've done up to your age, which is quite young, you know, to have accomplished all those things. I think it's really cool that you have that vision and that purpose, and that the values are there, the old school values. So I hope to be back here again, and we'll be probably doing something else, and I'll be learning something new.
There's always lots going on around here, so come anytime.
Okay, thanks, Marty.
You're welcome.
Dr. Brenna and Three Graces Medispa has been inspiring love, confidence, and health in humanity since 2019. Dr. Brenna's skin therapists have the advanced knowledge required to revitalize and rejuvenate your skin. Radiofrequency, microneedles, chemical peels, and Oxygen Neo superfacials are just a couple of the treatments we offer. To learn more about Dr. Brenna and Three Graces Medispa, visit our website at threegraces.ca or call us at 204-572-5774 for a free consultation. Thank you to our show sponsors, Bankert Marketing, Dr. Brenna and Three Graces Medispa, Real Security Solutions, Right Side Equipment of Dauphin, Oil Depot of Dauphin, Roofs, Furniture and Appliances of Dauphin, Tri Family, Health, Beauty and Fine Gifts of the Paw, Ramsey's Health and Fitness of Dauphin, Cloud9 Canis Supplies of Dauphin, and Hearts to Nature Fine Art Nature Photography. See you next week.